link, a grill out on the patio, disposal in the sink, a washer and a dryer, and an ironing machine. In the tract house that we share, somewhere that's green, he rakes and trims the grass. He loves to mow and weed. I cook like Betty Crocker, and I look like Donna Reed. There's plastic on our furniture to keep it neat and clean. In the pine sol scented air, somewhere that's green.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining me and my very special guest. You know her from such musicals as Bring It On, Rock of Ages, Legally Blonde, and Hair. And Broadway audiences fell in love with her all over again when she stopped the show nightly as Karen Smith in the hit musical Mean Girls. And tomorrow night, Thursday, October 15th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, she kicks off her concert called Back to My Roots as part of the Radio Free Birdland series, which is produced by Birdland and BroadwayWorld. Please say hello to my dear friend, Kate Rockwell.
Hello, audience.
Oh my gosh, I miss you. How are you?
Thank you. I'm so good. I'm so happy to be here with you right now.
That was so stunning.
Oh, thank you. It's like crazy that I haven't seen you in so many weeks, because for so long we were getting to hang out every Friday, and then like it stopped and we were like, oh, okay, when's season 2? And now we get it started this week, which is so exciting.
Well, now we're doing Next on Stage, season 2 of our singing competition, which kicks off tomorrow night. So we'll be back in the chairs again tomorrow for the high school competition, and of course on Friday for our college competition. Yes. Well, first of all, before we get started, how are you and where are you?
I'm good. I'm still here. I'm literally still in this room. I never leave this room. So I'm in Manhattan. My husband and I are still here. He actually he's like a real person, and he has a job. Do you remember what those are? And so he's back to work now on location in the residence where he works. So we're here. I'm just around.
I love this. Well, it's been over 6 months since the New York theater shut down. I mean, 6 months. It's over a half a year. How are you two handling and dealing with the pandemic as it continues?
Yeah, I think it's literally day to day, or maybe it's week to week. Maybe I'm being like, I can be generous and say every week is different, but it's not. It's every day. It's interesting because obviously, having stayed here in New York for the entire time, we've really kind of witnessed the roller coaster that was Manhattan's experience with it. And now I think we really feel like we've reached, for the most part, some semblance of what normal feels like. Except for the fact that I don't ever leave. That still does not feel normal. So, it's been very interesting. It's obviously incredibly emotional, and I'm sure that's true for everybody, particularly those of us that are, really mourning the loss of our community, our business that just got dealt another blow this past week. Which is really hard and very, very sad. So I'm so grateful that we have this space. I'm so grateful that my husband has been able to continue working so that we have this space. But yeah, no, it's really, I feel like the last week has been really sad. And I think that's because we just know that now, even though I think a lot of us sort of expected the announcement about, the date being moved even farther into the future, I think that the reality of it is very heavy. So that's what it's been this week. But there's a lot coming up for me this coming weekend. So I have that to look forward to and to feel excited about. So that's sort of what I'm focusing on, is just Thursday's the concert, and I'm teaching a wine class on Saturday. And those are both, I mean, huge passions of mine. Obviously, no one does a solo cabaret unless they're incredibly passionate about it. Because it's so scary and so much work. And then the wine class is a huge passion of mine, and I'm so excited and also scared to share that with people. So it's a big, exciting weekend, which is good having something to look forward to.
It's nice to have that. Now, before we get into talking about those, I want to ask you what has amazed you the most and what has frustrated you the most during the pandemic?
What has amazed me the most? Well, I have a couple of things that frustrate me, so I'll start there.
Okay.
I get frustrated, obviously, and this is like not to delve too deeply into this, but I'm really frustrated at sort of the like abandonment of the arts community, large and small, not just the Broadway world, like any sort of live performance. I feel like we are, the thing that everybody says like, oh, I've got, I'm getting through Netflix by listening to all this music or watching these live streams or binging shows on Netflix. But like, here we are kind of, looking at a full calendar year, over a calendar year of not being able to work and kind of no assistance, no support. And that has made me very frustrated. I know the vitality of the artistic community in life and how important it is to have arts and culture in life. And so I'm feeling sad that we don't hear a lot of response about that. I'm also frustrated that I can't hug my friends.
Me too.
It turns out I am actually like a cute, like physical touch is like a real love language. I did not know that about myself. I've always been like, oh, I'm okay. I don't really need, it's like, whatever. Now I'm like, please someone hug me. I miss my friends. I love my husband, but like, I miss my other people, my network. I have this wonderful network of people and I miss them. So that's like the hardest piece. I think the thing that has surprised me the most, is that's one of them, I guess, is like just learning how important it is for me to be in shared space with people was a surprise. But I'm also sort of really proud of the way that we as a community have rallied for each other. And I mean that both publicly and also privately, like the benefit work and the sort of outreach and the charitable drive that people have done to raise money for not only our own, our Broadway Cares or the Actors Fund, but also for any other number of charities, making sure people don't go hungry, making sure that people have roofs over their heads, places to stay. The social justice reform that our community has been such a huge part of, making sure that, voices are being raised and being heard, and also bail funds for protesters are being paid, those kind of things. And then on top of that, the sort of immediate friend-to-friend outreach that has been like, how are you? Are you doing okay? Do you want to connect tonight? That's something that it turns out as a community are really, really good at. And I'm so impressed by that when I am a part of it, when I receive it from my friends, my family, my theater family, I should say. And then I also know that it's happening, on a larger scale. So it's just a neat thing to know that we are able to use those skills of connecting with people and empathy. It's a huge part of our job, to literally be there for each other in such a scary time. So I think that's been really beautiful to see.
That's terrific. Thank you for that. The election is just a few weeks away. I know it's on everybody's mind. We have an audience watching this from all around the world. Would you just talk about how important it is for people to register and vote?
Yes. Actually, Richie, I recently found out that I will not be here on election day. It was a very recent change. It's wonderful, but it was very scary because I was like, no, I haven't registered. I'm like, I haven't voted absentee. I have to do something. I literally got my ballot in. I requested my absentee ballot a week ago. It arrived yesterday. So 1 week, so quickly, like, thank you, USPS. Thank you. So even if you are nervous about that, the system is working. So please, 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 everyone, your voice is so valid and so important. And the only way your voice is going to be heard is if you vote. If you have not registered in your state and you still can, please do that today. We need you, especially if you're of my Gen Z voters out there that are listening to this right now. You guys have the potential to impact this election in a way that you cannot understand. There are so many of you that will be registering for your first election this year. If you have not registered and you are able to register, please do that literally right now. Abandon this. You can watch it later. Go register to vote. If you are registered, make sure you have a plan for voting. If you're going to vote in person, that's wonderful. Find out where your polling place is. Make sure you get there with enough time. If you are in line and you have been waiting in line for a long time, stay in line. They cannot close you out. You have to be allowed to vote. Have a plan of how you're going to get there. Take your friends and family there. If you want to do absentee, that's great. As long as it's something your state can do. He's laughing at me. I'm like so passionate about it.
I love it.
But if you can do vote absentee in your county, in your place, that's great. Make sure that you get the ballot into the mail, USPS. many, many days before the cutoff date. Get it in as soon as possible. You can also, in a lot of places, there's drop-off locations, official drop-off locations. Do your research on where those are. Make sure you know where it is, and you can literally take your absentee ballot and drop it into a drop box. There are so many ways to participate, but please understand your voice is so important. And if you want to have people protecting your rights, the rights of your friends and family, women's rights, LGBTQ rights, there's so many things that are at stake right now. So please, please, please participate in the system. It is not perfect, but it's what we have, and you must participate in it. Please. Okay,
you are good. Thank you for that. That's terrific. Well, listen, like you said, this is a big week for you. Well, tomorrow night, Thursday, October 15th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you kick off your concert called Back to My Roots as part of the Radio Free Birdland series, which is produced by Birdland and BroadwayWorld. How excited are you?
I'm absolutely terrified. So we recorded this in front of a zero audience 2 months ago. It was the first time I've been on stage since March. I love my solo show so much, but it is not easy. I did this to myself. I wrote my own show, you guys. It's my own fault. But myself and my music director, Jason Lafredo, who has been partnering with me on this show for years, we were so emotional about getting back into a room where we were able to perform with each other live. You know, he's playing for me. It's just him and me. And it was both of our Birdland debuts. And that location, you guys, if you've never been to Birdland, it like smells like New York history. You know, it is such a vital institution, and it is like the pinnacle of cabaret performance. To like be on stage at Birdland is such a cool experience. And I've been a part of other people's shows there, but I've never done my own. So getting to do this show on a Birdland stage during this insane time, like it was so almost like ethereally large. And I've done my show before, and I love, it's always, everywhere I've gone to do it has been so much fun, but this one felt really important. So I also, it's the first time it's recorded, so I'm like so petrified to see what it is. I'm like, please, I hope I'm good.
You are sensational. I've seen many clips from this. So just like you said, you mentioned before we went on, this is the first time you had sung. I mean, It must have been so emotional for you. Like when he started to play the piano and you started to open your mouth and sing, like how emotional was that?
You'll see, I know exists, because I remember being like, I can't believe you're crying on camera. But at the very end, just as we were sort of wrapping it up, I start to cry because it was such an emotional experience to be like, we did this. Yeah. We did this at a time where we haven't been, this is the thing I love more than anything in the world. And I haven't been able to do it for 6 months. And neither has anyone else, like with Jason, we were just so emotional about it. We cried at my first rehearsal with him back together. I cried. Like, it's incredibly emotional to hear live music again. And it's so much, it's like my blood, like that's what gets me up in the morning. And so not having that for so long was so hard. So to have it again was such a relief and so joyful. There's so much joy. It's so crazy to try to explain to somebody, we hear so often coming from the outside world to our world, like, well, why don't you pivot and try to find something else to do? And I think a lot of us are doing lots of things. We're teaching. I was just listening to Robbie Fairchild's florist business, which is astonishing. Like, people are doing all kinds of things and they are pivoting. But I think what people forget or maybe don't know is that this isn't just a business for us. It's not just our jobs. It's our life. It's our self-worth. It's our value. It's our biggest passion. It's everything we are. And so, yes, financially, there's a piece of this where it's like, you got to figure out something to do so that you can keep the lights on. But also we've lost the thing that makes us feel like ourselves, and getting that back, even in the smallest, strangest, most quiet room environment, was so reassuring. It made me feel like, oh, we're going to get through this and it's going to be okay. Yeah.
So who are some of the composers and the songs you have in this show?
So this show, to me, I call it the tribute to what I call like the second golden age of Broadway, which is the 1980s. I was raised on 1980s Broadway shows, Andrew Lloyd Webber, things. I mean, some of the shows which I don't sing from, but basically we do a lot of we do some Les Mis, we do some Cats. We have a lot of Bill Finn in there because I think Bill Finn is like he just writes the perfect musical. Literally has written the perfect musical. It's called Falsettos. It makes me so happy. So there's a lot of that in there. There's some Cy Coleman in there. We did like slightly shift, and we did a world premiere of it. We did a jazz standard because we were at Birdland, and I was like, I gotta do a jazz standard at Birdland. So we put that. I don't want to say which one it is, but we did a really cool jazz standard in there. That's really fun. You guys saw the clip of Somewhere That's Green that is in there. We have, oh my gosh, what else am I missing? That's really, I don't want to give away any of
No, you don't. Listen, people should watch it. I think that's a great mix of everything. You had mentioned Trina. You had mentioned falsettos. Is she a dream role of yours from falsettos?
Right now, she is the dream role. That is like where I'm like, someday someone will believe that I am old enough to have a 13-year-old child, and they will let me play that role. I really look forward to that day. I think Bill Finn, and I talk about this in my show, I think he writes the perfect musical because the stories are real. The people are real. They are not dramatized. Their lives are exactly like what we deal with every day, or what they were dealing with, particularly at the time that the show was written. And then they live such intense experiences that they have to sing. And when they sing, they sing. It is like singing, which I love. So that's just like a dream for me, is to get to like really sink my teeth into that role.
I love that. Well, let's go back to that day, because like I said, you sort of recorded this we were like 2 months into all of this. And, I watched everybody on the street, like outside of Birdland afterwards, with masks on and all this stuff. I mean, what was it like? Like, you're going to go to Birdland, there's nobody there. I mean, did you psych yourself like this is a TV special from the 60s with no audience? Or I know it was this big emotional day for you, but like prepping and getting there and like putting your outfit on and sitting in the dressing room with your makeup, and like, what was it like?
It was so surreal. Because also, I live uptown, I live out of Midtown. And so I haven't been to Midtown very often recently. So getting there and seeing what Midtown looks like without all the tourists and without all the hubbub is crazy. Yeah. And then, like walking into Birdland, but also there is an element of fear too, right? Like walking in being like, am I risking my health? Am I risking the health of the video crew? Like, am I risking Jason's health? Like, there's that element that has never existed. I've never had like fear about walking into a place in like that way. So there were a lot of things that were really overwhelming. And honestly, like, it was probably good because it took my brain off of the fact that I was like, can I sing this? I have no idea. It was so surreal to like sit down at a dressing table, but like also not really feel like you want to like we don't, I didn't take my mask off when anyone was around. And so like I was watching that clip from the screen going, is my lipstick like all the way down here? Because you put lipstick on, then you put your mask on, and then the mask you have like lipstick. So I'm not sure that I don't have lipstick from my nose to my chin in that video, which means the whole show is going to be like that. So get into that. But it was really sort of out of body, because you're like, this is the thing that I know more than anything, but it doesn't feel familiar. It feels new. And that's crazy to have it sort of feels like the ground is a little shaky underneath you in a place that you always felt so stable.
It's so great, though, because I've watched the clips. What's going on in your mind is not what we're seeing as an audience. So like I said, it's such a spectacular concert. So again, it's part of the exciting new series called Radio Free Birdland. They feature a new show every Tuesday and Thursday. Yeah. They are filmed with 3 cameras, state-of-the-art sound and lighting, socially distanced musicians, and no audience. Yeah. So
and they made everybody feel so safe. They were so careful. The crew was excellent. They were so easy to work with in a very weird time. I'm just so grateful to them for the series. It's such a great idea.
So how fulfilling was it for you to film this concert and make art during this pandemic? Literally
art. You're like, especially under the circumstances. It really just made me feel like, oh, right, I do this. This is who I am, right? This is the person that I am, who I choose to be, I've worked to be, and I want to be. And so being up on that stage and making music again in real time and not in this room was like I felt like my heart lit up, so much. And I will say, like, during the show, like all that stuff that you're thinking about before, all of it's gone. Because on stage, all you're doing is living in the fact that like there's a spotlight on you and you are on a stage and you are singing music. That's all that matters, right? And that's one of the things I think we all love so much about performing is in that moment, or even experiencing art, somebody else's art. In that moment, there isn't anything else. There isn't that pandemic happening. There isn't lipstick all over my face. There isn't no audience in the room. But like those things get set aside because the only thing that's happening right now is the story that you're telling in the music. And there's a meditation to that is very calming, very satisfying too.
Well, you look and you sound gorgeous in this. I want to let you know. So again, the concert is tomorrow night, Thursday, October 15th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then we'll be on demand for 30 days at Broadway World Events, where you can buy tickets for $23.50. I mean, it's amazing. And the great thing about this is it's people who normally couldn't come to New York, even if you could come, will be able to watch this concert all around the world, who'll be like, oh, I'm a Kate Rockwell fan. I saw her in this show. I can sit in my house in France or in the UK or anywhere in the world or in the country and watch you. So I think that's really amazing. And other exciting elements about the Radio Free Birdland series, which is produced by Birdland and Broadway World, is that it features a beautiful array of Broadway jazz and cabaret artists. And like I said, a new show runs every Tuesday and Thursday evening at 7 p.m. They are produced and directed by Birdland's Ryan Patternite and kick off with a chat with Birdland's Jim Caruso, who also serves as a producer. That must have been great to sort of have the warm-up of Jim interviewing you before you hit the stage, right?
It was nice. And the two of us could kind of look at each other from our 12 feet away and just be like, this is crazy that we're doing this. So it's nice to have that bonding moment with another artist and just be like, yeah, this is what we're doing, but we're doing it. It doesn't matter that it's weird. It doesn't matter that it's different. What matters is that it's happening. That's the most important thing, is that art is happening and we're finding ways to do it. And that's the whole point to me.
That's sensational. Like I said, I know where I'm going to be tomorrow night. Well, listen, I want to go back to the beginning of your career. Was there a defining moment when you said, I want to be a performer and try to make a living at this?
I think I was dumb enough to not realize that was hard. Honestly, I say all the time to these kids that I teach, regularly now, I'm like, you guys have so much access to things, but you also understand in a way that I did not understand. I literally didn't have the internet. I'm one of those people that's I remember a time before the internet. But I didn't know it was hard. All I knew was I love singing. I love musical theater. I love being on stage. This is going to be great. And only later did I go oh, that was a risk. Because I lived in blissful ignorance and I didn't know. I decided I wanted to be a performer my freshman year of high school. We did a production of Fiddler on the Roof.
Yep.
I played Grandma Seidel. And I remember just being in the opening number and being not as Grandma Seidel, just as townsperson number 4, and being this is the most exciting thing ever. They're here, I'm here, we're doing this together, and no one knows how it's gonna go. That's crazy. And that's when I fell in love with it. And I did somewhere in there decide I was I'm gonna do this and make money at it. And good for you, girl. Have dreams. But I think I'm very fortunate that I had that perfect combination of I love to work hard. I'm very motivated. And also I was blissfully ignorant of how challenging it was going to be.
But that's the best thing. It's you're just going to go into this thing. I'm going to do this. And you just sort of, you take your own path. You were one of the finalists on the television reality competition, Grease. You're the one that I want. You were nicknamed, of course, Serious Sandy. Of course, that's when I first fell in love with you. I mean, looking back, I've had conversations with Laura Osnes and, of course, with Jeremy Jordan's wife. I mean, with Ashley. I mean, you auditioned for millions of people every week. I mean, that is unheard of when you come to think about it. Looking back, what did you take away from that and learn from that whole experience?
Several things, actually. One is that nothing I ever do will ever be that bad again. And by bad, I just mean intense, scary, overwhelming, out of my control. There were so many pieces about doing a live reality show that involved a vocal skill or performance that were so overwhelming, and literally nothing will ever be that hard again. And that's a great thing, right? To know that the scariest thing you've ever done is over. So I can do anything now. There's nothing that I can't do because I managed to survive that. The other thing that I learned, and this is, I think a lot of us would say this, those of us who are, who participated in that show, is that I learned very early on, it was really, really important for me to be my own spokesman. Yeah. That no one should speak for me, and no one will speak for me. No one is looking out for me the way that I'm going to look out for me. Everyone has their own interests, right? Everyone's creating their own thing. And I should not expect somebody else to do the work of representing me or speaking for me or protecting me. That's my job. And so, no, I'm not going to let you, goad me into saying something terrible about someone that I actually love and respect. And no, I'm not going to just say, yes, I'll wear this horrible dress that looks like I'm wearing snakes because you said I should. I did say yes to that. That's my fault. It's on camera somewhere. Those were the things that you learn. I was 22. I was so young. And I was so excited to be there and so overwhelmed that a lot of times I didn't do a good job standing up for myself or speaking out. And not that you have to be a diva, you don't have to be high maintenance, but your voice matters, just like we were talking about with voting. And it's like, it's okay to say, I'm not comfortable with this, or I don't believe that. And if you don't, no one else is going to. So I think I learned that in that process too, of just being like, no, you're what I feel and what I think is important. And it's okay to be able to communicate that as long as it's respectfully.
It's so weird because I've been a part of this reality series with someone, and I was like, it's so interesting because they want to create something. They want to make you, like you said, serious Sandy. It's like, you've got to play this. No, I know what, same thing on American Idol. They're all the same sort of things. They try to put you into this thing, and it's, you should be able to be yourself.
Yeah. But that's not of their interest, right? Like they don't want everyone to be unique and interesting. They need you to be a carbon copy of something else that already happened, because that's the formula of reality TV. It's not reality.
But I'll tell you were sensational on that. I bow before you of being able to. You did really great in that competition series.
Hey,
and like I said, look, we all fell in love with you on that. We fell in love with all of our Sandys on that. Look where you all are now.
I know. Well, that's what's fun about it is that like a lot of us have gone on to do really cool stuff. Yeah. And like the women and the men, like all of everybody was so skilled on that show, and so we had so much fun together. They didn't ever use any of that, which is too bad. Like they kind of could have had a really cool opportunity to show like what we were actually like. Yeah. But we had a blast together, and a lot of us still have a really good like bonded relationship with each other.
Do you stay connected? Do you do like a Zoom or every now and then, or do like a yearly, like,
we did for a long time, actually. Now it's a little bit more distant, and a couple people have decided to move on and families or leave the city. But like I still see Max, I still see Laura. I talk to Kathleen. Like there's several people that we those of us who have sort of stayed, we do connect on stuff.
That's great. Okay. Many people were supposed to make their Broadway debuts this spring, and then the pandemic hit. And I hope when the theater comes back bigger and better, they'll have that opportunity to do that. You made your Broadway debut as Margot in the hit musical Legally Blonde. What do you remember about your Broadway debut in that?
I remember that we had that. So we had the house, right? The big, beautiful sorority house was the opening image. And we were behind those windows, and the windows kind of popped out. And I had the first line of the show. And I was so scared that I was going to open that window and panic and like not know what it was. So we're sitting backstage, and I was right next to Tracy J, who played Serena at the time, Tracy J. Edwards. And she is the sweetest, most wonderful human. She's like, you got this, you're okay. And I literally couldn't even talk to her. I was so nervous. I sat there at that window going, dear Elle, he's a lucky guy. Dear Elle, he's a lucky guy. Dear Elle, he's over and over and over and over, just so that the first thing that came out of my mouth was that. So much so that I popped a blood vessel in my eye and woke up the next day looking like a vampire. This whole eye, like all red. I was so stressed about forgetting that opening line, which I didn't forget, by the way. It totally came out. It was fine. It was like I'd learned it. I knew what it was. So then I looked like a vampire for a week, and that was how I had my public over.
I love that story. You're like, here I am. I popped a blood vessel.
And like you're getting the cast. You don't get to rehearse with many of the cast, so I was really just getting to know most of my company members in that week that I came in, and I'm like not looking anyone in the eye because I was like, everyone thinks I'm horrible. I'm so ugly. No one's gonna want to be my friend.
But eventually you enjoyed the run, right?
I mean, that show is so perfect. And I realize it's maybe not the story that needs to be told right this minute, but like, I would love for them to put that back up. I think it was way ahead of its time. I think if that show had come around a couple years later, it would have run forever and ever because it was such an amazing, intelligent, funny musical.
I love that show. Such a feel-good musical.
Yeah, exactly. It's like so much joy in it. And it's so smart. Those Larry and Nell, they're so brilliant, right? The music is so genius.
I love it. But I love that story. I never knew that story that you popped a blood vessel in your It must be terrifying to open a show.
It's so, and you feel like when you're replacing into a show, like everyone's watching you, which they are, and that's true. And so I was like, everyone is watching me. I hope I do my job.
Yeah.
you're fine. Just do your job. But I didn't know then. Now I know.
I love that. Well, you know, then you joined the cast of the Broadway production of Hair as a member of the tribe. Now, I had Jay Armstrong Johnson on last week. He said, Richard, it was one of the most joyous times, a joyous company. What was your time like in Hair?
He's right. That's exactly what it was. And it was really interesting because they had this company that existed in the original Broadway cast that they almost 100% transferred to London, which means almost 100% of my company came in at the same time. And we, even though we were replacements, we replaced as a unit. And so we built our own tribe, which was very unique and like crazy to do, honestly. It was so fun. And it didn't feel like we were replacing. It felt like we built our own show. So even though we weren't the original company, but by any means, they had created the show themselves, we sort of still got like the benefit of building it together. So we were really a family by the time we made it on stage together. We were so bonded together, that company. And let me tell you, if you want to break boundaries between people, end act one by taking all of your clothes off on stage together, because that will do it. It was the scariest and also most like freeing thing I've ever done on stage.
Okay, did you have to wait to do that to your first performance on stage?
So we did in our final tech run, like our designer run was the first time we had full tech. That was important, right? The lighting is important. You're not gonna like do that in a rehearsal studio. So we waited until we had done it multiple times with all the tech, all the lighting. We knew where we were going. All the wardrobe team was ready. We knew how to do all the changes. And then we did it, basically our very last run before we had an audience was the first time we did it. And, you know, like you're standing off stage just going like, like, can't believe I'm going to do this. People are watching. And then like you do it, whatever you're told to do with your costume to get it off the way you're supposed to get it off. And you're standing there and you're like, no one's looking at anyone. Everyone is just like eyes up. Cut to a week later and it's like a free for all. Everyone's like going early because it's so freeing. There's nothing, like there's just nothing, you cannot hide anything. So it was and like, again, like the people on stage with you are your family and you're protecting you. And we developed such a relationship with our front of house crew who was responsible for protecting us from cameras or, you know, whatever other people think that was appropriate to pull out while we're literally exposing everything we have on stage. Like it was a really cool way of connecting and being vulnerable with a group of people. But it was also, again, you're like, if I can do that,
you can do anything. Did you get to work with Diane Paulus at all?
We did. No, she was with us the whole time. She put us in, you know, she built the show with us from day one all the way to our opening night.
Okay. Did you have a presentation day with her?
We did.
Okay, so for all of our fans who are watching, just so you all know, I've talked to many people who worked on Diane Paulus shows. Everyone like dreaded this day where you had to do a presentation of your character for her and everybody in the company, right? Everyone's been through this, every star, everybody. What was your presentation day like with Diane?
So I was member of the tribe and the ensemble, which means I didn't have a lot of scripted structure. I didn't know much about her on the page, right? Which means I had to create her. Literally the most informative acting exercise I have ever had. It has informed everything I have ever done since. The notion of like, if it doesn't exist on the page, then you get to decide what it is. Just decide what it is so that you know who you're playing. And it creates this beautiful, like 3-dimensional picture on stage. There is no such thing as like a random chorus person in a Diane Paulus show. And that's literally why these shows are so engaging, because everybody on stage is informed. Everyone knows what they're doing, what they want to do, why they're doing it. And it's incredibly scary to be brave like that. And, you know, like she gave us very little requirement, but there were certain things that we had to incorporate. And what was so neat to see is that no presentation was like anyone else's. I play the guitar in mine. I really don't play the guitar. Like that's not a skill I have, but for some reason that was really important to me in the presentation. And I have to say, like it has changed the way I look at acting and character work ever since that. And I did the tour with her as well of Hair, and we did it again. And I had to redo my presentation because different tribe. Like, I mean, I still kept my character identity, but she had grown. So like, what was that like? What was new? What was kept? And then I actually, one other time working at Arena Stage, Molly does that as well. And so when we did Carousel, we did the same experience. It's just such a cool thing to be a part of when you're in a large ensemble piece like that.
I love that. Yeah. Because it fills your character out.
And then you develop relationships with other people on stage immediately. You're like, oh, I know how my character feels about that. I know how my character feels about that. And those relationships exist. It becomes a real system of relationships. Not like right now we're watching the lead sing. It's like, no, who am I watching you sing with, and what do I think about it, and what do we think about it, and how do you know about? There's so much life happening when you invest in those details and get to share them with other people so that they know the details also, just like real people do in real life.
Fascinated by that. You know, then you created the role of Skylar in the world premiere Bring It On, the musical. How much fun was that? Oh
my God, it was fun. I will say it was a lot of fun, but the element of adding professional cheerleading into a musical is incredibly challenging. So that was such a dominant force of what we were doing, was literally trying to make sure that we could do what we wanted to do without hurting physically hurting people. You know, I don't have any cheer background, so I had to learn everything from scratch. We had Taylor and Ellie both going up in full competition stunt work. They didn't have any cheer background, so like they had to like flip, fly, you know, do crazy stuff. Meanwhile, we have professional cheerleaders learning to sing on stage for the first time. Everybody did everything. So it was very, everybody was at their absolute best and their absolute weakest, which was cool. It, you know, like kind of leveled the playing field in terms of like yes, like I'm here to do the comedy and I've got that, cool. But like, I also have to hold someone in the air and then catch them. So like, I need other people to help me, to teach me, to like, it created a real sort of dependence on each other, like a real cheer team. So it was a very overwhelming experience, because for those of us who aren't used to having bodies flying out of the air at them and be expected to run towards them instead of obeying to save yourself, which is the things that you come in with. That was so much of the driving force of it for me for a very long time. It wasn't really until we got to New York that I felt like we got to relax into it at all and like then just have fun doing a musical.
Well, these are great things to add to your resume skills, right?
Literally, do not ever put me in a cheerleading musical ever again. Please, I'm too old.
I love it.
I will never. I mean, I will. I do have the memory of the first time, but literally a stunt went down in one of our numbers. I think we were still on tour. A stunt went down. I saw it going, and I literally went in and I caught this one of our top girls, sat her down, and I went, "Oh, you did it! Like you ran in and did it on your own." Like I just went and caught her out of the air and I set her down, and I like, it was like the first time I was like, "Oh, you're a cheerleader now." They would not call me that, but I called me that.
That's hysterical. I still think you should be a catcher. You should still put that on your, you know, whatever. Fabulous. I love it. It's all about the arms. You know, you then stepped into the role of Sherry in the hit musical Rock of Ages. What was it like living in the world of 80s rock? And did you have a favorite song that you sang in that?
Oh, wow. High Enough, hands down. Especially in so I was blessed with many Drews over my time, but my High Enough with Justin Sargent is literally one of my favorite experiences that I've ever gotten to do, you know, 8 times a week, because you are screaming in each other's faces. And if you've ever listened to Justin Sargent scream, like it is one of the most wonderful sounds in the whole wide world. So like we had so much fun together, and we're very, very close friends. And we were even when we were together. And so that was my favorite moment in life. But I love To Be With You, like the Heaven to Be With You mashup in the first act. I loved Hardened Shadows, which is Harden My Heart and Shadows of the Night, the mashup that the women do together. I just think that show is so brilliant, and being like, it was like all the things I ever want to do. Like you get to fall in love every night, you get to scream your face off every night, you get to be funny and like quirky every night, which is, you know, me, that's my whole self. So, and then you get to like go home and like be like a rock star, and then like also be a normal person. Like at the end of the night, like, go home in the subway like everyone else. So it was a real blast. I loved being a part of that company. It was because it was a small company. And the Helen Hayes at the time, before they've renovated now. It was a small space, and that show was really challenging. It was really athletic. So we were also a very close group of people. That was just such a blast. We just playing pranks on each other all the time. We had so much fun together.
That's great. But then you left the business for a few years right after that.
I did.
What made you do that? Why did you leave?
I left because I was beat up. I had done Bring It On for about, I think it was a year and a half total, all in a row, out of town, into the tour, in the Broadway run. I had 2 days after we closed Broadway, closed Broadway on December 30th, 2012, Bring It On. The next night was New Year's Eve. The next day was New Year's Day. I got engaged on New Year's Day. And then on the 2nd of January, I started rehearsal for Rock of Ages. So, and then I did that for a year and 4 months. So I was truly tired. I was like, my body hurts. I want to eat a bowl of spaghetti and not think about how my costumes are going to fit. And my husband and I, my now husband and I, we were getting ready to have our wedding. And I was like, I haven't had a chance to focus on this. This is the only wedding I get, I hope. So like, I kind of want to spend some time doing that. I wanted to go away on my honeymoon and be able to like eat pasta and like do that and not be like, well, my costumes. So it was time for me. I left Rock of Ages, we got married, and I came back and I was like, I found myself, I was working on a 2-week lab of a new show that was in development. And I found myself like kind of resentful of being there. And like, I was like, this is wrong. You can't be that person. You can't be like angry about like your rehearsal time. This is such a wonderful thing to do. And if you're not in it right now, you need to go. And so I did. I finished that 2-week lab, but then I backed out of the next step. And I chose not to go with the show. And I stopped auditioning because I just knew that I needed a break. And I never wanted to be, I call them the golden handcuffs, where you're like chained to your incredible, wonderful opportunity, but like you can't really be the best version of yourself in it. You know, there are so many talented people in New York who want it so badly. And like, those are the people that need to be doing it. If you don't want it, it's time to let it go and let somebody else who does want it have it. And I was there. That's the position I was in at the time. So I did. I stopped auditioning for a little while. And in that time, I totally by accident ended up working at this wine shop in the Lower East Side. And I developed, discovered this other passion that I now get to like have with me for the rest of my life. And I worked in wine for almost 2 years.
So, and you have a wine tasting coming up this weekend, don't you? Tell us.
I do. I'm teaching my very first ever wine class. I spent 2 years working in the wine industry in Manhattan in retail. I actually, while I was working there, I decided to get my certification in wine and actually like go to school for wine, which I did. And there's so many parallels between wine and musical theater. Particularly the more natural side of the wine world, which is what I sort of had the pleasure of working in and what I love more than anything. And so to me, it's a very natural pairing of skills and of passions. Like you'll find a lot of people who are like big wine lovers and art lovers in that, that sort of crossover community. So we're going to do a wine class. We're going to do, to start, I've chosen 2 wines from little tiny wineries that I really like in California. And we're going to talk about those wines. We're going to drink the wines together. We're going to talk about, the artistry in bottle. We're also going to talk basics, like how to identify what you like in wine and what you don't like in wine, and why the wine community from the outside looks very scary, but actually it's so open and wonderful. It's all about sharing experiences together. And so I want people to feel comfortable entering into that community and feel confident walking into a wine shop or buying a bottle of wine to share with friends or like bring to a party. I want to give you the tools to feel confident about making those decisions so that you too can participate in this thing that I love so much and I want everyone to love. And then my wonderful friend Ashley Park is going to join us for a little bit and have a little like Broadway chat. So she's going to be there with me drinking wine also.
How do people find out how to join this?
Sorry?
I love it. How do people find out how to do this, be a participant, buy a ticket?
So you can find, there's a link in my bio on Instagram if you come to at Kate Rockwell NYC, or my wine account is at BroadwayWino. Both of those have links in bio to buy tickets. They're $15. It's like not it's totally achievable. The wines are available to buy if you can find them. You're also more than encouraged to buy wines that are similar. So please, like, don't feel like you have to have these wines if you can't find them, that you can't do the tasting. Of course you can. And it's going to be really fun. We're just going to like gab and drink and talk about drinking and gabbing. And it's going to be a party.
To have you and Ashley Park together, drinking and telling stories about wine. I am so going to be there, just so you know. It's
going to be very fun. Me and Ashley, we can't shut up when we're together. So I have a feeling it's going to be wild.
That's thrilling. Well, you triumphantly returned to Broadway, stopping the show nightly as Karen Smith in the hit musical Mean Girls. I mean, tell me, what does that role and that show mean to you?
It was literally a return for me. My first time back on the Broadway stage in several years, and I can't imagine anything I would want more than it to be the way that it was. Tina Fey is a huge. I've looked up to her for my entire career as an entertainer. Not only on her on camera and on stage work, but also her producing work and the kind of boss that she is. So working with her and then getting to finally work with Casey Nicola, who I'd always wanted to work with because he's literal comic genius. That was incredible. And then even beyond that, the company of people, as I'm sure you've heard if you've ever talked to any of us ever about what our experience was, that group of people they are my life family. I mean, the women, everybody, like we were just so close. So and then we made this beautiful show that brought a lot of joy to a lot of people, and to be part of such an iconic history, you know, this sort of overarching Mean Girls brand that we got to be part of. It's incredible. It was an incredible opportunity. I loved every second of it. My feet hurt still thinking about those shoes. I have not put on a stiletto since March. But yeah, it was an incredible way to spend 2 years. The best job I've ever had.
Okay, because I fell in love with the show in Washington. I was invited down to see the show, and I took the Amtrak down, and I had the most glorious time watching that show. Do you remember your opening night in Washington, or that first performance on stage? What was that like?
So our very first preview was Halloween, which is like insane, especially for my character, because that's a very large part of Karen's story and experience. So for me, it was my own starring show because we got to talk about Halloween on Halloween for the first time with the audience. I just remember thinking we must be at a rock concert because people were so pumped about the show. They were so responsive. We were so excited to be doing it. Like it, you know, again, it just feels like when you get to be a part of something as large as Mean Girls, you know, like what that has done, what that was to my life as I was growing up with those isms and the sort of cultural icons that those characters are. It's crazy to think that you get to be a part of that system, you know, like me and Amanda Seyfried, like just holding up the Karen flag. It was so much fun. It was so exciting. And then the next day was like, okay, back to rehearsal. We got to fix everything. We got to fix it the night before. We were basically in previews the entire 5 weeks we were there. We never stopped rehearsing the entire 5 weeks we were there. So even through our 5 weeks of performance, we had a rehearsal every single day.
But that's like out of town. That's what Casey does so well too. It's like perfecting your musical. You know, very few shows go out of town anymore.
So you have to do that, especially for comedy. You need that audience to do the building of the storytelling to understand how it kind of ebbs and flows. And without the preview process, how do you find that? So like, thank God. I mean, I thought it was great. It was such a wonderful experience. Because
I spent a lot of time with you all. I remember sitting with all of you at the hotel around the corner on the purple couch, had all of you, you know, and it was like right after you opened, and we talked about so many incredible things. I mean, you would all run to each other's dressing rooms during that, right? I mean,
it was like a sorority. We truly had, I mean, in DC, it was even more that because the way that the theater is laid out, like everyone's dressing rooms is like one line of dressing rooms and then one line of dressing rooms. In New York, where it was a little more like, you know, the theaters they're taller rather than wider. So there were 3 dressing rooms on each floor until you got to the ensemble dressing rooms. So we were a little more like segregated off into groups, but our floor, we were the second floor, was just the 6 principal women, and it was a sorority. I mean, the things like we're in each other's rooms, like digging through food and like stealing people's shoes and like borrow your hairspray, and also like, you know, tears on someone else's couch because like I just had this fight with. It was just so nuts, but so awesome. It's the kind of like female bonding experience that you always hear about in movies, but you're like, that doesn't happen in real life. Except where it was happening in real life, and it was the 6 women on that floor in Mean Girls, and our doors were always open, and so everyone else was always invited to come down and hang with us pre or during or whatever the show. You know, we had couches in every room, so there was always space for somebody. And I think we were crammed into that building in such a way that there was no stone left unturned. Like there was like storage of like pantyhose in, like underneath people's chairs. We were everywhere. It was so tightly packed. And what that meant was there was no such thing as being isolated. You were always with somebody somewhere, and which was like sometimes hard if you wanted to warm up, but like also again, like incredibly bonding experience.
What do you remember? Because the audience for this show was amazing. It was incredible in Washington, and then it was like a Broadway rock concert in New York. So when that thing opened up and you're all rolling out on that table. I mean, what were you thinking of, like that first time you were all up there and that all opened? You all did something before that opened. Tell our audience.
Well, are you, I don't know if you're specifically referring to like one specific thing that first time. We were so nervous because the table, right? So the table's on wheels, right? And Taylor is up on this table. So literally when I think back to that, what I remember thinking is like, I was holding onto her foot like a vice grip, just trying to like plaster this poor woman down to this table that's like running over like the bumps on the floors. And she was so nervous. We were so nervous for that. But we had like a little high five chant that we did. And so the last thing that we did before the door opened is slap Taylor on the ass. So it was like her and me and Ashley. And it was just like, we had this little thing. And then we would just like bang. And then the doors would open and we were there. But I was literally like one hand on Taylor. And then like as she pivoted, it was like slam. And I had both hands on her foot, like gripping her ankle. She probably had bruises because I was so worried about her fall. We were also worried about like this first moment. It's such a tense, like beautiful tableau. But the audience was so raucous and we were so full of like adrenaline. And I was like, oh my God, if you're the reason that Taylor falls off the table, that's the end for you. So that's what I remember thinking about opening night.
Well, at least you didn't pop a blood vessel in your eye.
I did not. All my blood vessels stayed intact for the entire run of Mean Girls the musical.
Do you all stay in touch?
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. I literally spent the evening last night with Christina Albato and Erica Henningsen and Ashley Park. And we FaceTimed Gray while we were there. We talked to Kyle, who is now, with Erica. They live together. So we like literally, it's such a family unit that they're the only people I've talked to all day. It's Mean Girls people. We just all talk all the time.
But it must be so great because every show you create a family, but there was something very, very special and bonding about that, especially when you're in the trenches from the very beginning. And like you said, you're out of town and you're doing shows at night and you're, rehearsing every day and putting all this new stuff in. You just bond and you just stay together.
Yeah, building a show together is an incredible experience that is unlike the vulnerability and the level of exhaustion that you reach and the level of dependence that you reach with each other is not like, I don't have a comparison outside of my theatrical experience of what that is. And that was true of Bring It On as well. Again, you need each other so desperately when you're doing this because it's such a crazy experience. And that family, this Mean Girls family, I think because we knew that we were doing something that there were a lot of eyes on. There was a lot of expectation about what the show was going to be. We had the absolute best leadership, and it really is like from the top down, like the attitude of how to be, the notion of like there is no wrong answer and please, yes and there's so much yes and in that space, and that was true on stage and off. Everybody was really like, what do you need? What can I do for you? How can I give it to you? All the time. I think that created a system where we really truly did not feel that we could fail. And then we lost all the Tonys, and also it was fun. Who cares? We got that night was incredibly bonding too, because it hurts to lose. It hurts to not be recognized for the work that you've done in the way that you hope for. But that's also then we got to decide that it was like, this is our show, whether or not people decide to award it with anything. We still are so proud of the thing that we created. And that, I think that just took it up another notch.
Well, the amazing thing is audiences loved your show. I mean, you were always sold out. I mean, it doesn't really matter what accolades you get because what you give, there are many shows that have won awards and closed a week after. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, it's like what you really want is audiences loved your show. I mean, I remember I took my whole family to your show. My nieces wanted to go to the show. Everybody went to see Mean Girls.
Yeah. One of the things I love the most too is how many young people came to see Mean Girls. Young people in general, but lots of young women. It was a show that was very encouraging of women and of this relationships that women, can build with each other. But we had so many first-time Broadway audience members in our audience every single night. And that is the coolest thing more than anything is being like, I love being a part of somebody's first experience. And I want to make sure that the experience they have is so wonderful that they cannot wait for their second. That was always our goal with the show, was making sure that people felt like this was the best and I want more.
Well, you delivered that. We're almost out of time, but I have to mention your solo CD. I love your album, Back to My Roots. How thrilling was it and rewarding to put that album together?
That was a life goal. That was like someday I will have an album. I'm not a writer, like that is not my skill. So it's not
Yeah.
original music. It is the music that I use in my solo show. So if you tune in on Thursday, you will get a preview of what the album is. But minus the studio quality recording and the large band, which we did not have on Thursday, but we do have on the album. It was amazing. It was also like, it's so crazy to have like there be no rules. It's like you can do whatever you want. It's your project. And when you create your own art, which this, we produced it and Jason did all the arranging and we did all the music together. It was so empowering to be like, no, it's whatever we want it to be. It doesn't have to be anything. It can be whatever we want. And both of us, we're so proud of it and we love it so much. And I'm so glad that we took the risk and made, took the time and put all the blood, sweat, and tears into it to make an album. And please go listen to it because I'm very, very proud of what we made up.
Well, for everybody watching, it's on every streaming platform. It's at Amazon. It's such a wonderful, wonderful feel-good album. And of course, what we're all living through right now is live entertainment and watching people who make art. And that's what you do. And that's what I'm so looking forward to. So, well, again, your concert is tomorrow night, Thursday, October 15th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then will be available for 30 days at Broadway World events. And you can buy tickets for just $23.50. Tickets are available at Birdland or just Google Kate Rockwell, Radio Free Birdland, Broadway World events. Listen, this has been great. Oh, you and I are back together tomorrow, right?
Back together tomorrow.
Well, we have to tell everybody it's season 2 of Next on Stage, our singing competition. We kick off the high school competition tomorrow night, and then Friday we kick off the college competition. I am so excited to be sitting with you back in this room again. For anybody who didn't watch season 1 or you did watch season 1, join us again for season 2. These young folks, they're the future of the arts, and they are so incredible. And just the feedback that you gave to all of the high school students last year was just so incredible. And I'm so glad we're back for season 2.
I can't wait. I'm so pumped to meet this new group. It was last season's was such an experience, and I can't wait to do it again.
Well, listen, I get to see you again, all for season 2. Listen, have the best time tomorrow night. Everybody watching, stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask.
Go vote.
And go vote. We'll see you soon. Take care, everyone.
Bye, bye, guys.